Good morning. As most of you know, my name is Greg Harvey, and the subject of today's Pride Moment this morning is the AIDS epidemic and its impact on the community. This is really a Reader's Digest abridged discussion of the epidemic, and I'll focus mostly on the 1980s when ignorance and fear gripped our communities. 2 weeks ago, Larry Dupelchamp described the Stonewall riots of 1969. And as it turns out, those riots were effective at inspiring other communities across the U.S. to resist police harassment. By the late 1970s and early 1980s, police raids on gay bars became significantly less common. This change was due to increased recognition of LGBTQ rights and the establishment of legal protections for sexual and gender minorities. As things slowly started to improve for the gay community, behaviors changed. Gay men did what all consenting adults do. They consented a lot. In any safe place they could find. These activities led to increased sexually transmitted diseases, or STDs, and the medical community was accustomed to treating common STDs that had been around for decades. A visit to the clinic was usually sufficient to tame known STDs. Then, in the late 1970s, the gay press started reporting on a new phenomenon. Gay men in increasing numbers were falling ill with pneumonia and a rare cancer called Kaposi's sarcoma. Their immune systems were decimated. Patients were unable to fight disease, and there were no treatments for it. The medical community scrambled. What was this disease? How is it transmitted? How should we treat it? Unfortunately, answers to those questions would not be answered for many years. Scientists coined the new disease gay-related immune deficiency, or GRID, because it was first reported among gay men in the US. Some people referred to it as the gay plague, leading to increased discrimination against gay men. GRID patients were segregated in hospitals and sometimes abandoned by family and friends. Fear was rampant. Contracting GRID was a death sentence. In a September 1982 report, the CDC first used the term acquired immune deficiency syndrome, or AIDS. It was defined as a disease at least moderately predictive of a defect in cell-mediated immunity occurring in a person with no known cause for diminished resistance to that disease. I think it's worth noting here that the CDC definition refers to person and not gay men. The disease does not discriminate. The federal government's response to aid under the Reagan administration was muted. Reagan did not publicly acknowledge AIDS until 1985 and did not give an address on it until 1987. The gay community responded with protests from militant groups, the most prominent of which was ACT UP. That group was formed by Larry Kramer early in the epidemic and was successful in having AIDS addressed seriously by local and state politicians. Without assistance from governments, the gay community organized itself to assist AIDS patients. People organized to provide patients with in-home care. Remember that last week, Pastor Thomas referred to communities helping themselves as agape. Surprising to me, because gay men had been largely dismissive of them, was the lesbian community's involvement. Larry Mood provided me with a prominent example of a woman leading gay advocacy in Cape Cod. Alice Foley, a nurse by trade, helped create the Provincetown AIDS Support Group in 1982. It successfully supported AIDS patients and became a nationwide model for other similar organizations. So it was in this era of ignorance, fear, and hatred, Larry and I were trying to live our lives. We sought solace in music, this time by joining the Dorian Men's Chorale in 1983. It was a group of solid musicians led by a talented arranger and conductor named Richard Green. Then, just as the group was gaining momentum, it ended. We got a call saying that the director had suddenly died. He was 37 years old, and he died of pneumonia. We had just seen him 2 weeks before. Following my father's example, I was a regular blood donor. American Red Cross contacted me often seeking donations. Then, without warning, at the last time I tried to donate, I was given a questionnaire asking if I was gay. Answering truthfully, I told them I was, and I was told that my donation would be used for research purposes only and not to assist patients. I stopped giving blood after that. Larry and I were known to have sown a few wild oats. At a 1984 Gay Pride event in West Hollywood, the center, formerly known as the Gay and Lesbian Community Center, operated a mobile blood testing vehicle. We decided to take the test. At that time, test results took approximately 1 week, and waiting for that test result was a real nail biter. Finally, we got the calls. The results were negative, thank heavens. We closed the 1980s in the worst possible way. Our best friend, William Edward Fleischman, or WEF, had been HIV positive since 1985. The only therapy available at that time was AZT, and it wreaked havoc on his body. We last saw him in November 1989 when we visited him at Long Beach Memorial Hospital. He was weak, unable to speak, and had several tubes penetrating his body. Chris, his life partner, told us later that WEF preferred that we not visit anymore. WEF died on December 14th, 1989. I arranged my first funeral and led my first funeral service a short time later. I still mourn his passing. Fortunately, in the intervening years, science produced therapies that helped HIV-infected individuals manage the disease. We know many people whose use of these therapies has reduced their viral load to undetectable. There are also prophylactic therapies available that are 99% effective at preventing HIV infection. While annual HIV infection in the US has fallen from 36,200 in 2018 to 31,800 in 2022, the number of AIDS deaths has fallen dramatically. Death from AIDS peaked in 1993 around 45,000. This is annually. That number has fallen to around 5,000 in 2023. Finally, let me leave you with a public service announcement. If your HIV status is in question, please get tested. Thanks for listening.